Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Kramer Show. I got a very, very special guest for you today. One of my favorite, if not my favorite person that works at Cars Commerce. His name's Grant Goering. Grant has a quite an experience in used cars, selling cars, F&I in Chicago, Illinois, close to where Cars Commerce is. He and I have collaborated a lot, and I would say that he has become the de facto AccuTrade expert. So if you're thinking anything about AccuTrade, and he's really carving the course when it comes to IMS. So Grant, with that, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, Brian, good to talk to you. And I see you're sitting outside of Miami. What is it, about 75 degrees?
Yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit cooler than that.
All
I
right.
got my
Well,
jacket in the car.
it's 15 and snowing here in Chicago, so I'm jealous. But thanks for having me. Kramer Show has been going awesome, and I'm glad to be able to contribute. But for those that don't know me, I've been at Cars Commerce for a little over 10 years, and prior to that, spent almost 15 years in retail. So I've done everything from wash them to sell them and finance them, and everything in between. And excited to dig into the topics today.
No, I'm looking forward to it. So in the first episode, George O'Connor, Kyle Disher, we talked about sight unseen appraisals. We talked about the dichotomy between maybe what was said on the survey where 20% of the people said that they don't give numbers, when Kyle said that number was close to 20% that did in his mystery shops, and over, I forget what he said, it was a million or a thousand mystery shops. So and then we had a chance to sit down with Dustin Collins, the car father, when I was up in Chicago on that topic as well. So we give them a number using AccuTrade. I just ran into this down here in Miami with a few dealers I visited today. So this is always the hot topic. So once a client gets on a dealership's website, say they get on a Dealer Inspire website, they want to get a number for their trade. They get the number, exact number, range, whatever it is. How do we earn their business after that, where other dealers are failing? What do you see? You go around just like I do. You see the best and some that are trying to be the best. What's the difference, and how do we earn their business? What do the best do versus the other ones that are fumbling?
You know, that's such a powerful question, and I think that there's multiple answers to that, but really it comes down to trust. Trust is the experience, right? And let's peel this back for a minute. Customers start shopping online, and in fact, what's the number? 88% of folks on cars.com don't know where they want to buy, right? And dealers have had to develop processes and muscles to be able to communicate the why buy message and follow up cadence and all of that, rooted in selling a car. But what you're asking about is, hey, you gave them an instant offer, and now what? And I think that in my travels, very few dealers have really invested the amount of time into the why sell to me messaging like they have the why buy messaging. And that's a mix of CRM workflow. It's a mix of employee training. They think that, hey, you just gave a number automatically and the customer is going to come down to the showroom waving their title.
Okay, so when you say about the workflow and the CRM,
yeah.
Pull on that thread for a second.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit more. That's another thing that came up today.
Well, just last week, I was in a store earlier in the week before Thanksgiving, and the same folks that were handling the sales inbound leads were also handling the inbound appraisal leads, or the sight unseen appraisal leads. And what I observed, I don't want to say it was shocking, but it's a little alarming. They would say, hey, now that you've gotten a number on your car, when would you like to come in to test drive? Right? They immediately
they didn't validate the trade, and hey, we're going to go through and yeah, because I find the same thing, or I find that they give a number, but they don't have confidence in the number,
sure,
for multiple reasons, and they kind of are apprehensive about what is going to happen once they come in, and they don't make the expectations clear. They just throw out an arbitrary range that maybe hasn't been, it's not as accurate, or they haven't adjusted it or whatever. The customer shows up and now they get really upset because now they're going to go look at the car and they go, I thought you already told me what the number was, but they didn't tell them, hey, when you arrive, here's the steps and here's what it looks like.
Well, and adding to that, if 3 out of 4 customers have a car to dispose of, why are dealers acquiring sub 40% trades, right?
Why is that?
It's because we're avoiding the confrontation, we're avoiding the appraisal. I mean, and these are all things that have been talked about at length, but I think if there's one thing that dealers could do today to capture more of those sight unseen and more of those, trade leads, is simply follow the customer. They
So what
want
does
the
the follow-up
number.
process look like in the first 72 hours, let's say?
So it starts with giving them a number, right? Give them a real number. And then when you reach out to them, offer them convenience. Obviously, they can't sell a car without an inspection. Can I come to you? Would you like to come to me? Every other dealer is going to try to sell them something. Instead, we're trying to give them money. So make it as easy as possible for them to take your money. I
So
think
where do you
that's
see dealers losing it after they give? So let's say they do give a competitive number, and many of them do, right? Our number, well, the data says that our numbers are the most competitive. So let's say they give an AccuTrade number. Where do you see the opportunity and where people are losing it after that happens?
they just move on to the next one. A lot of it is process and pay plans, right? People are paid to sell cars, not buy cars. So we can fix that. I mean, you can develop a pay plan around acquisition that would drive behavior, right? Pay plans drive behavior. But I think the biggest thing is just whiteboarding it out. What is the client looking to achieve? Does our process match what the client is looking to achieve? And how do we optimize it to make it simple, fast, and easy to do business with us? And if
I
you
was just
haven't
talking,
done that, you're just shooting in the dark.
yeah, you're working harder than you need to. We see it all the time.
Yep.
I was just talking to a dealer that made an adjustment, and not like you and I are in the game of writing pay plans or telling dealers how to spend their money anymore. But I will say what I've seen work, and I've seen it work very quickly, is just with a really sharp dealer up in the Northeast that at 50% trade capture, not look to book, they pay their salespeople a spiff. So now everybody's tuned into the frequency. At 55%, it's another percentage bump on their commission structure. And then at 60% trade capture, it's another commission bump. And immediately in 60 days, they went from 45% and they've been at 60% as a store and haven't looked back.
You know, we spent a lot of time talking about those pieces with stores, but I think every dealer, especially going into 2026, needs to go back to the genesis of it and identify what's most important. And that is acquiring cars directly from consumers. Like, establish this is what we're going to do. Here's why it matters. And then build, obviously, the process and the pay plans. You can't start at the end with how do I pay my people to do something until you've articulated clearly what the mission is, who's going to be held accountable. These are the things that we're going to measure, and then obviously move into the pay.
So let's talk about automation, marketing, maybe not working as hard as dealers have to, because I think that a lot of dealers work harder than necessary because they don't know the things that I didn't know prior to coming to cars.com. Right. I didn't understand the impact of reviews. I didn't understand the retargeting elements that go into and everything else you can do from a marketing standpoint to make it so you're running downhill more. But we all know that fresh reviews matter. Shoppers want to know about last week's experience because that's what they're comparing everything to, not reviews on Yelp that are 2 years old, dealer rater reviews or dealer rater profiles that haven't been updated. So can you talk to that and what that can do to premium listings, generating more reviews and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, here, if 88% of customers that come to a marketplace are undecided where to buy from, it's a natural that reviews are going to play a role. I'm redoing my home office, and I was searching for a monitor during Black Friday, right? Taking advantage of the sales. And I had to ask it, what is the best productivity monitor? And then it pulled up what the monitors were and then told me where to buy, gave me the reviews. And this was all done through ChatGPT. And it got me thinking that I asked my brother, how did you shop for a car for your 16-year-old? And he said, what are the best cars for a 16-year-old? Where should I buy them? Who should I buy them from? And, I think through what we're doing on the marketplace side with Claude, that's exactly why we built that. It's just this natural progression to how do we deliver the fastest answer, and reviews are a large part of it. So let's talk about that for a second. If you have reviews that talk about how easy it is to sell you a car, that's going to index not only in the marketplaces, but also in Google, also in ChatGPT. And customers are going to be able to say, where should I sell my car in Naples, Florida? Where should I sell my car in Chicago? And that review is going to pop up. And if they can see that it was done in the last week, in the last month, now it tells them that this wasn't 2-3 years ago. This is a place that I want to do business with. Follow that up with, they inquire through your website, they get a number, and then you offer them the convenience of being able to come to their home or them coming to you, that becomes an ecosystem or a process that just drives consumer centric behavior and obviously is going to lead you to getting better results.
Well, to
But it's
shift
all
the
part of your
focus away to
reputation.
that instead of to money all the time and just price, best. I don't think it's about that anymore.
I mean, Carson shows that people are shopping. They're using Carson to get to the answer. People who find what they're looking for are going to transact, and price no longer becomes the common denominator.
So
In
you
absence of
watch dealers,
value,
yes. Then the value exceeds the price. Obviously, that's when the
that's it.
transaction.
And if it's simple, fast, and easy, you're not going to shop it as much.
So you see dealers struggle all the time with converting after the appraisal goes out, and I
Oh, yeah.
talk to dealers on a daily basis. So do you, multiple times a day, that are freaked out. They're like, I don't want to send a sight unseen appraisal because I'm not confident on what's going to happen afterwards. What if they shop me? What if they do this? It's the biggest fear. Even though the study we showed that the more cars and the more numbers you send out, the less they shop. But how does automation, the dealers you see that do the best job, how do you see them leverage on automation to help stay more disciplined in their follow up?
Well, think about the competition in sourcing vehicles. You've got the CarMaxes and the Carvanas of the world. You've got the major publics that have invested tons of infrastructure and training in this. And in most cases, from Main Street to Wall Street, right, dealers are willing to pay more than the non-traditional dealers for the cars that they're the best end user for. Where they have opportunity to get better is in that follow-up process. So if I'm building something into my CRM, if I receive an inquiry or give a number to a customer, that doesn't mean that they're looking to do business right now. It means that that's the portion of the transaction that they're looking to explore. And it might be 14 days, it might be 30 days. So having touch points built in, understanding that customers come in and out of not only the purchase cycle, but also the disposition cycle, and making sure that you're easy to get a hold of and you can update their value every 48 hours. Like those are the type of things that you can do via automation that allow you to compete with the non-traditional dealers. But if you simply call them up and say, I want to buy your car, are you available at 3 o'clock? And they don't get back to you, that doesn't mean you stop trying to deliver value.
I talked to a few really sharp dealers this week, and they actually told me before I even you know got to that point is, and it's consistent. It's in different parts of the country where they're saying, I think that the trust is now built initially in the trade, and it's not just what's my car worth, it's can I trust you. And I thought that was very profound. So not obviously I love automation. I love controlling the process, always did, when I was in retail. And I loved to make my process, my marketing through the CRM, the automation. Hey, this is what you can expect. We'll buy your car if you don't buy ours. If you're not happy with that, hit this button and you'll be directed, directly to a manager. So it was more painful. So I was using the automation to control the process, but there's a balance between, and I used to always play the line between automation and the human touch, and not getting too automated, too robotic. And I think that the best dealers and I'm curious to what you see around the country, the stores you support, how do they balance that between the human touch, automation, not going too far one way or the other?
Well, there's a third rail there and in its reputation, right? So the best acquisition stores have a clearly defined process, right? Which includes human touch and automation, obviously with training. But they also allow their people to be front and center of the experience, right? It's not just about the value, it's about who you're going to be doing business with. And their folks are out there on social media communicating that they buy cars, that they give numbers. They're in Facebook posts, in Instagram reels, they're on TikTok. And we've seen a huge explosion in the ability to buy cars from public when your people communicate how you do it. And then it's backed up with automation. And again, as those folks get reviewed, now the AI engines are picking all of that up for zero-click search. So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And the part that drives me absolutely insane is dealers now are removing their staff pages because they're afraid of well, at least I was afraid of my people
I was
getting
too.
poached, right? So they all work for XYZ store, but yet your people are the biggest differentiator. And if you can build a brand for each of your sales associates or acquisition experts and then back that up with reviews, that's going to allow for that trust to develop organically. But more importantly, I think it empowers your people to build their own business, right? And they're less likely to leave. I don't know.
So
We can go back and
you
forth.
bring up a great point, because I've been thinking about this, and you and I haven't even had this conversation. But I've been thinking about this in parallel, not putting your, because I was guilty of it. I was horrible at it. I used to, that's how I used to recruit people, is
Sure.
through that. So
We all did.
and I knew what I did, so I didn't want my people out there. And I think that ties back into sight unseen appraisals, right? When people they're not confident in their process, they're not confident in the handoff and what's going to happen when it comes into the store, they don't want to give a number. And I think that, everybody can argue about what it really is. I think what it really is fear. And I think it's the same thing with not putting your staff pages on there, because if you have a great culture, you want to put more pressure on yourself, that's what you do. But you don't just do it for that. You do it for, when you're looking at the Google algorithm, you're looking at the cars.com algorithm, we're valuing experience, we're valuing expertise. Expertise is years, what's your staff tenure, how many stars certified, master certified, silver certified, ASE masters. And if you don't have that on there, and somebody says, where's the best place to get my vehicle serviced or my Lexus serviced in Chicago?
Right.
I guess there's only one dealer in Chicago that does that. But if you're asking what's the best Toyota dealer to get my oil, not the oil changed, that's going to be a different answer. But to get my timing belt replaced, it's going to give you much different answers, like what you were just talking about, based on, if you want the best experience, here's what it is. If you want the best deal, you're probably going to have to drive 100 miles or whatever that answer is. But it's going to come down to experience, number one, because that's who's going to show up. And there's only one search, to your point, with zero-click search and AI overviews. You only get one shot. There's not 5 different blue links that they get to choose from. AI makes that decision now, and they're weighting it on experience. And if you don't do that, you're invisible to the AI search, to your point.
So something that I heard earlier today, and it might be a little hokey, but I think you'll get a kick out of it. My first interview in the car business, when I was trying to get a job, I got handed a pencil and said, "Sell me this pencil." Right? I think we've all been through some version of that, either on the receiving end or leading the interview, and we know how awkward it gets. But today's shoppers, they don't care about how good you are at selling the pencil. They want to know if it's the right pen or pencil. They want to know if you're the right place to buy it from and if you're a trusted seller.
And are you going to waste their time?
Right. So the journey that I'm thinking about specifically was zero-click search. Going onto a marketplace like cars.com with Carson, right? I'm looking for an SUV with 4-wheel drive, with Apple CarPlay and a panoramic moonroof, under $50,000 in white or black, less than 30,000 miles. It curates search results. Then as I click through into the VDPs, I can see that the dealer is willing to provide a trade offer or home delivery. I can see that their employees are reviewed. I can open them up through Salesperson Connect, and I can see that, Frank or Susie made it very easy to handle my trade-in. And I know as a buyer, I don't know what car I want or what dealership I want to buy it from, but I do know I have a trade, and I do know that this review is here. It kind of closes that trust gap that exists where the car buying process became about vehicle selection and negotiation. And now it's all about vehicle recommendation, dealer recommendation, and then finally the person recommendation. So whether it's acquisition,
service advisors too.
Yeah. And it's just an opportunity that we can take our people that are our most valuable asset, right? You invest tons of time and training and attention into developing people. We can take our people and put them out there to communicate whatever message we want them to communicate and drive profitability for the store. And reviews are such a large part of that. And, I think it's something that we need to spend the next year really pushing for.
I had a wake up call last week. I took my daughter's Tacoma in for which I bought with an AI search, took it in for a recall. And as I was going through the scheduling deal, of course, I'm looking at it as a consumer. I'm asking all these questions because it's fascinating to me. And I'm trying to figure out what makes it tick. And I'm not just saying this because you and I work at cars.com, but everything that comes up is showing cars.com, dealer raters, citations, our editorial content, everything like that. But it told me I should, I said, well, I need to get this recall done. I was also trying to figure out, and it pulled all this stuff from Reddit. Hey, this is a 76% chance that it's this. This is what everybody on Reddit is saying is the issue with, the first 6 months of this Tacoma, some minor recall. And I said, okay, well, I want you to schedule service. I wanted to see how far ChatGPT would go. And it said, yeah, no problem. I can do that for you because agent mode. And then it said, you should deal with Mike. And I'm sitting there thinking, I don't even know who Mike is. I work there, but I've been gone for 4 years now. And I was thinking 3 or 4 other people. And it said, yeah, based on other people, Mike is who everybody's saying that you should deal with. I said, okay, schedule it with Mike. Now, didn't know him. I knew other people there, but I just wanted to see what happened. And it's fascinating to me because he's got dealer rater profiles set up. A lot of
Right.
people don't have those profiles set up. There's another guy there sells cars named Dimitri Haynes. But I went to
Mhm.
Mike just because of that. Dimitri Haynes, phenomenal salesperson, one of their top salespeople, has been every year. Every year he takes a picture. Every car he sells, 300 a year, he's getting a picture. Everybody's like, "Oh my, what are you doing, Dimitri? All these pictures and wasting all this time. Can't you, don't you want to just sell cars?" Well, Dimitri now has more business than he knows what to do with because AI search has optimized him that he has just strangers multiple times a week calling up, "Hey, I want to buy a car from you." They've narrowed the funnel down to, should I buy a Toyota or something else? Now, what dealership do I want to buy it from? And he said, then they go through at the next bottom of the funnel, which salesperson do I want to deal with at that dealership, which is fascinating to me. I thought it was and Dealer Rater is how they're doing it. Dealer Rater, Reddit, and other unconventional places, Twitter, not necessarily Google and Facebook anymore. So, what do you think the first place is the customers check after receiving a trade number when they're looking at reviews? What's that look like from what you've seen?
Well, before we get to that, Brian, I want to pull on what you just said. And I was guilty of this. When you're in the fishbowl 50, 60, 70 hours a week, right? We know what happens in our own world inside the dealership. But for every dealer listening at home, uh, go online, open up one of the AI agents or do it right through Google and just say, where is the best place to buy a new or a used, whatever, insert car in my city? Who is the best person to buy it from? And see the type of data that's being returned. So it'll reference maybe some editorial content that the dealers have published on their website. It will reference Reddit. It will reference Dealer Rater. Like, get out of the car dealer brain and think like a customer and ask these AI engines questions about your market, your region, your brand, and your people, and it'll be eye opening. Then, now to your point on the trade, ask it where the best place to sell a car is.
Oh yeah,
And if your store is
that's a good
not
one.
popping up in that, then there's an opportunity to really like build a process. Like, you have to create a brand because every dealer's got a banner out front with two metal stakes that says "We buy cars." Right? Like, that's not new. But the new way is customer that doesn't know where to sell it is asking ChatGPT, where should I sell my car? Who should I sell it to? How much should I sell it for?
Have you built out your website so you have a banner at the top? Is it clear or is it hidden on your website? Are you Does the customer have to work to be able to
Right.
get the number, or are receptionists and service advisors appraising their own cars in your dealership because it's easy, or do they go to a competitor to get a value for their trade because it's too much friction at the desk? You bring up a phenomenal point there. We did a study recently, and there's a 250% increase, 2.5 times more likely that the buyers were, depending on if you had individual team reviews like that. That was reinforcing what you're talking about. And I see a lot of the time there's claims that are made on the website, and then reality is something different. And that didn't used to be as big of a deal, but now with AI, it's picking that up. If you say you do 60-minute oil changes and it takes 2 hours, it knows it and it calls you out on it to the customer.
Well, the other part of it is with the reviews, not only capturing the reviews that articulate the story, but also replying to them, quickly and referencing what the guest said, right? If they're talking about a review of how easy it is to sell you a car, well, then talk about that in your response. Like, make sure that it's dual sided because these AI bots are picking that up too.
And I would put that on all of your third parties. Obviously, cars.com,
Sure.
definitely on websites like Dealer Inspire, but I would make sure that you've got review placement across the VDPs, the home pages, just like We Buy Cars. And reviews, let's just call it what it is. There was a point in time, 10 years ago where there was some manipulation. Hey, here's the link. And there's still a lot of juice. And it's hard, obviously you want to get as many reviews and as much volume as you possibly can and get as many people to fill those out. But you can't just manipulate one review source anymore. You really have to be intentional with it because AI is searching so many things. You can't game the system anymore. So you need to control it so that people are really talking about the experience across every platform, and you're just as serious about reviews as you are about we'll buy your car.
Well, and the next layer with AI is not just the reviews about the experience, but it's also being able to tell the AI exactly what you do and the benefits that you provide, like being a resource. So on your website, having a banner that says "We buy cars," Google can't see that banner. It's just an image, right? Like you actually have to have text in there. Here's what happens if you're with a preferred lender. We can get you a check same day. If you have a payoff from an outside lender, it might be whatever, 14 business days. You have to articulate what the process is so that not only do customers know what happens next, but also the AI engines, because that's another big part of this. And I think that at the end of the day, if we want to continue to compete with the non-traditional dealers, we have to win with experience, right? We have to win with speed. We have to win with process, and we have to leverage the one thing that they don't have, which is our people and our connection to the community. That's a big thing that dealers can leverage to win their unfair share. They just have to communicate it.
So you just said it. Every dealer has a "We'll Buy Car" banner in front of their
Sure.
dealership, and a lot of people, that's the strategy, right? When I'm like, hey, what? I mean, I hear you on calls all the time. So walk me through your current process. Well, we've got a banner out front, and then we've got some signs in the service drive. Everybody knows we buy cars. We've got a dry erase board in the service drive so they can see what models we want. And like, how many cars? I mean, you know where we go with that. How many cars you buying? Well, it's hard to quantify, and that's not a process, right? A process is being intentional about it. But I think it's fair to say that everybody can just spit out a number. Everybody's got a widget on their website of some sort. After they receive they've got a number. How should dealers prepare for the reality of the first places that the consumer's going to check and they're going to visit after they get that trade number? Because it's becoming at the top of the customer journey, whereas it used to be the last.
Yeah, I think trade is the first thing that people are shopping right now, right? I mean, when we think of either they skipped the trade cycle during COVID or they bought at the peak, right? And people are starting to become more payment conscious, and the trade is a big part of that, as is financing. So they're researching those things because this information is more readily available. So in your market, again, going back to getting into search engines, figure out what people are seeing, then make sure that you're seen. But more importantly, make sure your team has a crystal clear understanding of what to do, when it should happen, and then what should happen next. And I think that, communicating
Online.
by cars, yeah, it doesn't matter if it's online, if it's in the showroom, if it's in the service drive, there needs to be crystal clear clarity on what tactics and what the process is and why it's important.
And for dealership leaders, I know that almost every dealership that we go into, Grant, we say, what's the process? They can rattle it off.
Sure.
But then we go and talk to the people in the front line, after the main meeting. And we say, hey, walk me through what it is. Well, it depends on which manager's working. And, if it's this manager, they like it this way. This other one likes it this way. It's got to be, even if it's the wrong process, I think it's got to be consistent every single time, whatever it is. But on that note, you can have salespeople that are skeptical because the process is inconsistent. What do you see from a review standpoint on the best dealers? How do they turn that into a superpower to turn skeptical trade-in prospects into like real appointments that show?
Well, I mean, once you get a couple of reviews, they start to snowball. Then people are coming to you to get that same experience, right? And if trade acquisition is the nuclear arms race right now, right? I mean, that's the rare
Yes.
earth metal. We need the cars. So when you solicit those people to leave reviews and write their story, that's going to encourage the next customer. More importantly, when somebody sends an inbound inquiry to sell their car, you can fire back those reviews and say, hey, if you're curious how we handle this, this is what Mrs. Smith said, Mr. Jones said, and start leveraging that to drive more engagement. Because let's be honest, if they go to Kramer Motors and they get a trade number, they're also coming to Goering Motors and Freddie Motors. They can do all of this in a couple of clicks. Experience is what's going to win. The reviews are what's going to validate the experience.
So what's the difference between a dealership, because we see both, that hides its reputation and it hides its reviews versus one that activates it across the whole customer journey?
I mean, the ones that lean into reviews and really breathe that culture, they're not trying to find them. The reviews come organically, right? They're just really out there doing the best for their customers. They're being a good steward of the community. They're taking care of their employees, and they're doing business the right way. But it starts with solid leadership and a clearly defined mission. And the results speak for themselves.
So we're getting towards the end of the year. Every year we come out with the the cars.com dealer of the year awards. It's
Yeah.
interesting because 90% of the dealer of the year award winners, they respond to reviews. Um, I actually learned something recently that I didn't know in the 30 years I was in retail, that certain review companies, Yelp, for instance, reward you based on how quickly you respond to those reviews. And there's actually a decay rate. If you don't respond in the first 2 hours and you don't respond as a manager, you just have, I'm such and such virtual assistant or whatever. Having a manager can, on a BBB response or a Yelp response, can actually amplify it. It's actually better if you make a mistake and respond to it versus not responding at all or responding 2 days later. Um, and then 89% of the consumers say they're more likely to choose a store that replies because they feel like they're going to get taken care of after the sale. Um, how do you think that affects customers that are looking at trade values?
Well, I mean, it really simple. If you don't respond to a review, it means that you don't see any value in the customer that's providing you that review. And
At
if
least
I'm
not after they spend money.
yeah, I mean, if I'm shopping for something and I'm seeing negative reviews or even positive reviews, I'd like to see a business at least acknowledge it. Right. That shows that they're plugged in, that they care. Right. And that, again, it just goes to speaking towards trust. But it starts with, having tools to obtain reviews, having tools to answer the reviews for you with the responses. And it starts with a staff that believes that it's important.
So you've been with cars.com a long time, a lot
Yeah.
longer than I have. And I definitely, looking back, I'm like, man, I really, and it's not that my rep was not, uh, because Art still works with us. It was one of these things where I'm so busy sawing, he would come in and I'm like, just give, I don't want to hear the labor, just give me the baby. And I think a
Right.
lot of GMs do that, where they don't sit back for a second to really understand. I wish I would have listened more then to what he was talking about or how I could amplify my business on cars. If somebody, like a customer's looking at two different dealerships, how does cars.com help them make that decision, and how do they help them? Let's talk about the response time across the different platforms of
Yeah.
cars commerce and how the influence that cars.com supports that with.
Well, I mean, reputation is a key component to how we show vehicles to customers, right? Stores that are the best in the community, their cars show up first, right? That's a great thing to have. The other part is highlighting your staff with Salesperson Connect. I mean, there's infinite number of ways that we put the dealer in front of the customer, and if you're good, you're going to reap the benefits of it. But I think that the big thing here is customers are going to do all the creative work for you. Like, they can help sell you a car. They can also prevent you from selling a car. So again, going back to doing things the right way, having clear processes, and then putting, your people front and center to communicate that to the public. That's really the win.
So I'm glad you just brought that up. I took a couple notes on something on another presentation that I saw internally recently. 83% of Cars Commerce Media Network shoppers plan to buy within 6 months.
Sure.
But it ties right into what you just said, user generated quotes. So that's conversational on like a Twitter, Reddit. Reddit's become a powerhouse. Obviously, Dealer Rater, that's the number one user generated content for automotive, on the planet. Uh, and then obviously Yelp, Google, Facebook. But it's not just the reviews, it's also the communication that's happening in between the people that are responding to those reviews that aren't even, or people liking those reviews. So how do you think user generated quotes outperform, because our data says that it outperforms traditional ad creative? How do you see that impacting that as a more powerful, and what do you see as the best dealers? How are they leveraging this? The top performing dealers that you see, what's the difference between the best dealers and not the best dealers that are harnessing this?
So I mean, we've talked about this with trade process and some of the other things, right? Like Kramer Motors. Okay, you communicate exactly what your process is and the services that you offer and the promises that you adhere to. The customer that reviews you then speaks directly to, did you follow through with what you're going to say you did? When you can combine the two of those, now you can supercharge your marketing. So it's kind of like a, don't take my word for it. Here's 1,400 people that have had a similar experience, and it just adds validity to it. As we end, near the end of the year and we plan for next year, I think, reviews is definitely something people need to take stock in, from owner and GM all the way down to the marketing folks. Like, go in and search your market, search your stores, word cloud what people are saying, make sure that matches your processes, make sure that the objectives that you have are cleanly communicated so that you can get more value out of your media spend, and then just win the day with the customer.
So let me ask you this question, because this is a passion or a hot topic of mine. It's not being too corporate, too robotic.
Sure.
What do you see the top operators do to make their reputation feel human, to where it's not just a script, or you can just see, that's obviously AI with double
Yeah.
hyphens and things like that, and not like
Too many emojis.
billboard. Yeah.
I think they're people. Well, the top operators, the top stores with reviews, those are the folks that they hire better, they train better, they employ people that want to build their own business. They put their people front and center. They give them YouTube channels. They give them social media, and they let their people run wild in communicating the value props and what a great place it is to work and do business and all of that. Those operators obviously have trust, right? They're transparent in how they go to market, but those are coincidentally the ones that capture the most review traffic. They're
Right.
also the ones that have the highest lead conversion. So I don't think that there's any like
Salespeople that
one
love telling
thing.
that story.
Yeah, it's not one thing that you can do. It's a culture piece, and there's all the corporate stuff of saying, well, you got to have this score, and people are running to these KPIs to drive a search result behavior. But I think that with AI, your people matter, your reviews matter, how you address them matters, your process communication matters. Like, let's just look at it and say, okay, here's what we do. Does the public know it? Yes, no. If they do know it, do our reviews back it up? Yes, no. And then build an action plan in the first quarter of the year to make sure that you're cleanly communicating. How do you handle accelerated service? How do you handle mobile service if you do, right? Reviews are going to be a big part about mobile service being successful.
And
How
if
do
you
you
don't do
handle,
those things, don't put it on your website. It's almost worse if you
right?
say you do something and then you don't. And
Well, and how do you handle trade appraisals? How do you handle buying cars off lease? I mean, taking it back to your former life, just communicating how you handle a bereavement acquisition.
right.
I mean, I know that's probably not the best story to tell, but
No,
there's
it's like
people
Better
that in
Call
their
Saul, but you're
they're in the
you're
toughest moment of their life, and they were looking for a place to sell somebody's car, and you had that figured out.
and you should make that easier. And that should be a frictionless experience for consumers. And most people don't think that through, and they're like, what are we supposed to do? How do I handle probate? How do I handle this? You're right. That's SEO candy, or clickbait for anything. It's a win-win, because you get to buy a car with low miles, but you're also helping somebody out, not taking advantage of them. I just saw a post from Zach Kinch at Rohrman, and it was
Yeah.
fascinating. I haven't seen one of these yet. And he posted, here's what our earned media got us. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty advanced. Earned media is what you earn versus paying for, because of organic growth and people, all the stuff that Grant's talking about. And he had crazy amount of impressions, and he can quantify it now. But I think, that was a leap of faith.
Yeah, but the point in that post that most will miss is there was a year plus of trial and error, failing,
Like
learning.
Dustin Collins.
Yeah, to get to the end. It's not a flip a switch. Like and anything to have to do with earned media, to have to do with AI relevance, to have to do with reputation management is all about continuously making deposits and getting better. It's not something that you can influence overnight.
No, Dustin Collins, the car father, same
Yep.
way with social media. But I think we'll close it out with this. Obviously, building trust, trade opportunities. It used to be something that was nice to have, that some people did because it was the right thing to do. You don't do those things today. and I hope everybody's really paying close attention to this because it's just now starting to become more mainstream. But a year from now, you'll be irrelevant and you won't have traffic, and you'll be like, who turned off the faucet on all the traffic that's coming through? You know, we can help you. We're, you know, anything that I look at, we're leaps and bounds far and away with reviews, with citations, with all the editorial content, making dealers more relevant. But they do have to live up to what they say they're going to do. But if they don't start taking this seriously, it's going to cost them a ton of business, and they're going to think that somebody turned the faucet off in 6 to 12 months and not know really what happened, because it's interwoven into the VDP to SRP conversion. It's not just how well is your car merchandised anymore; it's what happens after the fact.
Yeah, and no longer are we in a winning in price economy. We're winning in experience. And the one thing that I take from this past week, right? Thanksgiving, you get with family and friends around the table. If you can't explain what your process is to do something to your Aunt Gertrude at the dinner table, it's too hard.
And be proud of it too. But yeah, you're
Right.
right. If you can't explain it simply, I hate to say it, I used to say this when I was at the store. If it's not simple to explain, then you don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
powerful, Grant. So lucky to have you on our team. If anybody wants to know more about AccuTrade IMS, the inventory management solution, or anything with Cars Commerce, reach out to Grant. How can they get a hold of you, Grant?
Real easy. My email is ggoring@cars.com, and look forward to helping you with all your trade and appraisal needs.
Thanks, everybody, for going with us on this journey for the last 40 minutes.
Thanks, everybody.